I appreciate you making the sound again, but I was in a different place this time. Can you stay in one spot and do that so we can find you? I'd like to talk to you.
Oh my God.
You alright? What did you feel?
Well, I felt like I was going to throw it back there, and then I got a headache, and then I started coming towards this way, and the headache went away.
So welcome to Society of the Haunted's Kampsville Grade School Reveal. We are actually in the hallway here, right outside of the gym, and this is an area right here where we've captured quite a bit of activity. Just through the doors here behind us is where Shauna had felt, well, you could talk a little bit about that in a minute as we kind of get into the reveal here, but the main thing here is the footsteps down the hallway there and some other things that we've come across just in examining the evidence a little bit further. But first we're going to get into a little bit of the history here, what we've discovered about the school. First and foremost, it was built in 1938 and closed about 2000. We're getting a definitive date on that. Shauna actually went here for a number of years. When was that? During the 80s, right?
Yeah, I went here I graduated 8th grade in 1988, so I went to kindergarten in another building entirely, but I was here for all of my grade school and junior high. They didn't have separate stuff. It's a small town, so we didn't have like a junior high here and a grade school there and that kind of stuff. So it was just all in one big happy family.
A little local history that we'll touch on to kind of give you, a backdrop of what we have here in Kampsville. First and foremost, this was a Native American site. There was a lot of Native American history here, a small village, and you probably know a bit more about that. Yeah,
the dig site is actually right behind the school. I mean, you can, in the playground area, one of the many playgrounds that I spent a lot of time on, and you can actually see the shelves built, into the land. So, and it's hard to say even what's sitting underneath, the actual building that's here now.
Yeah, the building is right here on top of the dig site. So, like Sean was saying, you can see the terracing in the back. And, down by the river, of course, there is all kinds of Native American camps. And that is something that the area has embraced during the settlers' day.
Yeah.
They have a lot of the Native American displays like that. So it's also just north of town, the landing spot of the French explorers Marquette and Joliet. So there's a marker just up the road that is kind of unkept. So it's not as wide known that this is a historic landing spot. What's wider known is the ferry.
Yeah.
That's been here, at least from our research, it was 1847 that, well, that was the last of Stephen. Stephen Farrow actually secured the license to start running the ferry here out of Kampsville. It was originally named Farrow and then later named Kampsville. So that's something that's always been here since you've been.
Yeah, I've never not known a time when the ferry was not a regular part of my traveling experience to get from any part in this county to civilization.
Yeah, it's one of only 2 operating free ferries along the Illinois River, and there aren't very many ferries still left around the country, but this is an area that has kind of kept that tradition, and Kampsville is one of those locations. Back in 1893, a lock was actually built here by the Army Corps of Engineers. And actually the same year that the school was built, they ceased operation at the lock, which had to be kind of devastating for the school, considering that was a major industry here for Kampsville. So they kind of built the school thinking that they were going to have all these kids, and that went away. So, and we might be hearing stuff. And we actually explored those locks back during the summer, so we catch that video, of course, here on Haunted Road Media. And also, of course, just north of town is the Goldenrod Showboat,
which is where we're going to be going later tonight.
Right.
So, yeah, and I mean, there's a lot. This area is definitely rich in history, and there is probably some that even I have not discovered yet.
Well, you can talk a little bit about the geological nature of this area with the water, and it's a peninsula basically between the Illinois River and Mississippi River, and then you always talk about the water and the limestone.
Calhoun County is basically the area where the Illinois and the Mississippi rivers meet. And plus, we are also surrounded by limestone bluffs, and that with the Native American history and the being right by the water, the limestone and the water are both believed to be good conductors of paranormal activity and of energy. Yeah,
so it's even for being a kind of out of the way sort of place, you have all this great history that's actually here, and then like Shauna was saying, you have these great conductors for paranormal activity that really have made it a hotspot. And Shauna's investigated multiple locations here that have been extremely haunted. So
it'd be harder to find a place that's not active. Actually, I think my parents' house is probably the only place in this area that hasn't really had any activity, because I have never sensed anything, and of course, they don't ever see, hear, feel anything either. So
there you go. Shauna's parents' house is your lone sanctuary. So tracking down the history of the school, was very, very vital for us, and Shauna did, so much of the legwork here. But one of the big haunts of the school, as we start getting into what we've actually discovered here, are the footsteps that you hear up and down the hallway. That was pretty loud back there. Well, come on down. Visit us. We hear you starting to move around a little bit.
Can you come over here?
They're above our heads, which leads you to believe that they're coming from a second floor, but there's no second floor here. So part of the research was in trying to find out if there had once been a building here that had a second floor, whether it had been another school or a house. So first and foremost, we were looking for another school on this site, and that's where you did a lot of work in trying to track down the old high school that had once been on the property.
Yeah, because, and it kind of led me on a little bit of a chase, because it was implying that the high school was in a different location entirely. And then it wasn't until talking to the local historian and looking in one of his books that found that that there was actually a high school on the property. That and the clerk's office also, where their records went back quite a ways. So
yeah, one of the great resources that we use when you're doing paranormal research is to get into those old records, go to the clerk's office, look at the old land plats, look for any historic books, records, what have you, on the location. For here, one of those books, Calhoun is My Kingdom, and it has all kinds of information here on the county, but page 43 kind of briefly talks about the school. And this is pertaining to the high school and then later the grade school. It says, a new site for the Kampsville school was purchased from M.A. Camp in 1900. The old frame building that had been used was sold to the Baptist congregation, who used it for several years and then sold it. And that was actually a school that we had discovered down the street. We'll get to that in a second. It is now being used as a dwelling. A new building was erected upon the new site. It was afterwards remodeled, and at the present time is being used by the grade school and the 3-year high school. So that tells you right there that the one single site is being used for both the high school and the grade school. Now the high school is not standing anymore, and that was one of the things that was quite a challenge to hunt down. Now the records that it mentions, the 1900 acquisition. There's that right there. And this is something you find at the clerk's office. There's records like that. And do you want to talk a little bit about what you had to do to find the school? Because we had the mention of a first school and then there was the high school, and it was a bit of a challenge to try to differentiate what was what.
Yeah, until we went to the clerk's office, anything that I had found online made it sound like the old high school was like clear down at the other end of town, like down by the river. You know, after going to the clerk's office and doing a little more digging, found out that that was not true. So, and then there was a friend of my family's that's lived behind my parents for quite a while now. It's been there since I've been little. Maurice Lammy, yes, who actually went to the high school. So, and he had a yearbook, and there was a lot of old photographs and stuff like that. So, and he remembered, you know, the school being on the same property. So,
yeah, he talked about the walkway that was between the two schools, between the grade school and the high school, which I believe in one of those photos of a student photo or something like that, actually you could see the walkway back behind them. And then finally, at Old Settlers Day.
Yeah. And then at Old Settlers Day, we, at the Historical Society, had a booth. And they had several books and photographs, and it was there that we found a picture of the high school, which was on this property, and it had 2 stories.
Yeah, 2 stories. So what kind of threw us off for a little while, some of the descriptions, is it talked about a school at the intersection of Broadway and Locust, which we were never able to find a Locust Street. It had apparently been renamed. We're looking at you know, old maps from like 1900 and 1915, and you know, it shows the school right here. And this is Walnut and Broadway. And what we actually discovered, you know, from that description, and then just going down there and, you know, really taking a look, is yeah, you could see that sure, that was a, you know, could have been used as a school building. You know, there's the corner. It definitely had been a church, and it's now a dwelling. So
yeah,
that's the, you know, original school that's talking about there, not this site that we're currently at.
No.
So yeah, use your, you know, historic tools to try to narrow down, you know, the history of your location. Now, that still doesn't help us in putting a 2-story building right on this exact building site. You know, there's still a possibility there could have been a house prior to 1900. We couldn't find any record of that. But, you know, there's also the chance that, you know, I've seen it happen at other locations where the high school, was over there, 2 stories. Could, you know, there be something there that is using this site, since it's still a school site, as its, you know, 2nd floor? Because I've seen it, you know, I was just recently at the Stone Lion Inn, and you know, there's a haunting there of a little girl, and maybe other children that precede the current building of that house, but the family's previous dwelling was right next door. So could that spirit have come over into the new house and followed the family? Very possibly. So could the same thing have happened here, where something that may have been on the 2nd floor of the old high school when that building was demolished, did it come over here and occupy the attic?
And so if it's attached to a property, you know, then there's a lot of property to cover here. So, you know, just like at the cafe that we've talked about before, you know, there's a little spirit of a little boy there, but there wasn't a building there at the time. There was just a tree that he fell out of and unfortunately died. So when the building was there, you know, instead of being a tree, it's now a building. So, and he's still there for sure. Definitely, for sure. He is there. He is still there. Which, if you buy the part 2, Encounters with the Paranormal Anthology, you will not only see a picture of him, but you will read a story about it. So if you want to know more about that, then you should buy the book.
Absolutely. Same with the Goldenrod Showboat that we've mentioned. There's a special section in there for the Goldenrod Showboat that, and part of the proceeds of that book go toward the restoration and preservation of the Goldenrod Showboat. So now let's get into the actual evidence and reveal. So we talked a lot about the footsteps already down the hall. Do you want to go ahead and talk about what happened behind us, just basically on the other side of this doorway?
Yeah.
Or what happened to you, not us?
Yeah.
I appreciate you making the sound again, but I was in a different place this time. Can you stay in one spot and do that so we can find you? I'd like to talk to you.
Oh my God.
You all right? What did you feel?
Oh, I thought I was going to throw up back there, and then I got a headache, and then I started coming towards this way, and the headache went away. I actually just felt like somebody had invaded my personal space, and they got really close, enough to make me feel a little bit nauseous, and had a little bit of a headache, which is how some stuff affects me. Depends on how strong it is. But that one just happened to get really close, and I had said, you know, actually like, oh my God, you know, I mean, it was just really, really close, and I had to walk away from the area to see if I could walk out of it or if it would follow me or not. And it didn't follow me right away, you know, so I was able to walk away from the hot spot. And then, you know, we caught an EVP.
I appreciate you making the sound again, but I was in a different place this time. Can you stay in one spot and do that so we can find you? I'd like to talk to you.
Oh my God.
You alright? Well, it's a female voice.
Yeah, I mean...
But it wasn't Shauna's.
Yeah, we had to listen for a little bit. You know, you can tell, you know, that if I were going to say something else, I had just spoken, so I would have had to take a breath to speak again. And there was nothing there, and I could definitely, you know, tell my voice from somebody else's voice. So, but there was definitely no inhalation of any kind to start a new round of talking, and it definitely sounded different from me. So yeah, I would say that there's at least another female in here.
Well, and we may have, I think that's our window.
No, that was like a...
You hear something else?
Smack. That was
okay.
Not the window.
We'll have to listen back. It'll be on here. And speaking of, you know, woman, I mean, we may have possibly caught a woman through our previous video session in the Kampsville Raw Footage 2 video, where we're looking down the stairwell into the basement. Hopefully we got something here.
I bet we did.
Yeah. It was a good idea. So, yeah. So it looked like a stationary woman just staring up at the camera. So it may be matrixing. The jury's still out on that. We, upon returning here, have taken some photographs of that area, and we'll do a comparison here, you know, flash to comparison. I had it set right about here, right? I don't know. And you can be the judge of whether or not that is the female entity that perhaps was repeating Shauna when she was having the experience right here on the other side of the door. So it's an interesting photograph, but still maybe matrixing and tickles Shauna's demon stomach. One of the other things that we have just recently discovered here, we were going back through some of the old footage, just really to kind of gather what we were going to talk about here, because there are a number of different you know, quick experiences that we've had here where, you know, there was, you know, banging on the other side of the wall in the gym, which we did a whole segment on. That's behind you.
Is there something like hanging against the side of the building?
I'm gonna have to go look to try to debunk that.
I came up here to the top to have something against my back.
Right. Okay, this is the back of the gym. There's nothing here.
Yeah, see, I was thinking that maybe something was...
All right, hanging and banging. I mean, you would have been sitting like right here. Why? You would have been sitting right here in the corner.
Yeah.
Right up there. Yeah, really, with the gym, it was like back and forth, trying to, you know, toy with us, trying to separate us, and, you know, put us in different parts of the gym. We're chasing it all over the place. So there's a lot of that going on. But in one of those cases, just going back through the footage, it was really just kind of watching what was going on. We saw an interesting shadow effect over the camera at the time, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw over by the doorway over to the boys' locker room in the basement area, a shadow. And so we went back over that footage a few different times, and sure enough, there is a shadow figure over there, and it's moving.
Yeah, it moves because if you fast forward, go to each frame or whatever, it changes because you can tell that its size is changing because it's going further away from where it was at.
Yeah, as you're stepping through the footage, you see it kind of walking a little bit. It's almost what it seems like. It sounds like a step. I don't know tell where it's from.
I can hear you moving over there.
Over there.
If I told you that I could already see you, would that make you want to hide as much? I don't know if you're trying to hide so that we can't see you, or if somebody's telling you that you have to hide.
Can you play that whistle for us again? Motorcycle outside.
We tried to recreate that, me standing over there to see, to scale. Once I crouched, down, that would put it about level with the glass, the window on the door, and that would make it about the size of a child, really.
Yeah,
possibly a 10-year-old child, which to me I'd always felt like I wasn't really 100% sure if it was a child or not, but just the behavior, just the playfulness of it,
Yeah, because there was one time you got poked or tugged or something like that, as if somebody was playing with you. And yeah, just kind of sizing up, putting Shauna right where that shadow person would have been standing. Shauna's head comes higher than that shadow person's, and so I put it, I think, right about your neck. So 10, 11, 12-year-old maybe.
And I'm not a big person.
No.
I'm only about 5'6". So, my own kids are taller than me, and they're teenagers. So it would have been, I would say, almost a junior high age, 10.
Which would be appropriate for this school, really.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that's going to wrap it up for our last venture into the Kampsville grade school. I mean, I hope sometime down the road it opens back up to us.
I might be able to sweet talk somebody. Somebody out there will let me back in. Let us back in. I am personally, there's some time in between now and December 15th, so I will definitely be back.
Yeah, so Shauna will at least be back here one more time. But as far as a team investigating and sharing these videos with you, this will be it for this foreseeable future. And I hope to get back in here somewhere down the road. But please let us know your thoughts on the evidence that we've collected here, and the history. And if you want to do a little bit of research as well, and maybe help us fill in those holes and fill in those gaps, that would be absolutely fantastic. So please let us know what you thought of this video, the whole series, really. In the comments below. We always have a lot of great conversations within those comments. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it out, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. So it's gonna be good.
Yep.
Until next time.